Welcome to Miss Day. Before we get started fully, we're going to go through all the ships, of course. We're going to talk about my Master Endeavor plans and Endeavor Rule the World series for whenever the heck that ship finally comes out. And then we're also going to go on the showroom floor. I want to mention that the Odyssey in-depth video will be tomorrow, featuring Mason again, guest starring. So he'll be co-hosting with me. So it'll be really fun. So I'm just going to kind of cover it in very basic detail here. And on the showroom floor, I'm going to mention a few more things about the weapon turrets and also about the if you would have a CCU this moment, should you use it. And spoiler alert, you shouldn't. You should sit on it until the Q&A. But you'll hear more about that in the later part of the video. And of course, the big video tomorrow. So if you're waiting for more than a 30-second soundbite about the Odyssey in each section, understand you're going to have to wait for that. Well, it's like 2 minutes actually on the showroom floor, and it's pretty good. But you'll have to wait for the full video where we'll really tear apart that ship, every single capacity of it, compare all of it to the Carrack, and that will be really a very special video, I think, for everybody who is looking to consider making such a valuable purchase in credit or bond, or even just thinking about if they're going to buy it in game when it's finally available. So the Reliant core is a light freight vessel. Just like the rest of the Reliant series, it takes off with its wings horizontal, and it has two modules on the ends for turrets, or utility mounts on the other types. And then on just like the entire Reliant series, when it goes vertical and changes from VTOL and landing gears, etc. up, it switches to this vertical system, and the crew pod in the back is the only part that stays straight. Very cool design. You can notice that it has vectored thrust, which is great once again for VTOL capacity. The entire ship is very well geared for that type of work. I have mentioned in the past that if you blow off one of these wings, it loses like half of its offensive capabilities, and it could theoretically damage the engine. However, I've had multiple people come out and say to me that the Reliant series actually can fight, especially this one, the light fighter variant, the Reliant Tana. Now, the Reliant Tana has some upgraded weapon systems. You can see it's energy based out of the box, and it is a really cool looking ship. You're talking about an alien ship that's really clever, and that's pretty great. So let me finish up the Reliance before I go back to the hull, because the hull is a whole nother topic. The Reliant Sen is the science vessel, and in my opinion, the you can see the science module here, and there's a second utility mount at the other end, by the way. The Reliant Sen and the Reliant Mako, which is the news van. Down here, it's hard to see it, but there's a camera system, a very large camera that's going to be able to zoom, pan, tilt, zoom, be able to cover different information. And the editing bay in the back of the Reliant Mako is what you saw this year, where Jax McCleary had his crisis of his career and coming to terms with it and finishing up with his wonderful editor and her work, and with Jimmy, of course, who's been fleshed out quite a lot. And it was the back of a Reliant Mako was where they shot that. So if you want that type of experience, here you go. That editing bay they talk about is sitting in the back of here, where there's two beds on the one side, and there's an editing station on the other, and then there's computer racks on the front of that hook up and live feed to this camera and other feeds that they can get their hands on. So this is a real shiner of a ship. It has a second utility mount, just like the Sen. I would personally love to see another module like that, like a science module, placed on the top. So you have a nice combination, the Reliant Mako, or vice versa. Take the Mako's module, and if you can sneak it up here. I don't know if it works that way, because this technically is a turret seat on here. And I think this one also is for its co-pilot, but it's like a different style of scanner thing. So we'll have to test that out. I don't own the Sen at the moment. I haven't tested it in a very long time, but I own the Mako, and I really like it. And I think these are both the shining ships of the Reliant series. So right off the bat, I'm going to mention it later as well, but the hull series has gone up in price across the board. You've got a $20 price bump USD on the hull A, which is quite a problem for starter ship wise, but other people argued it was necessary. I'm gonna keep my opinions to myself on that topic, but the hull A to me is not as important as the hull B, which went up $50. Let's get over to the hull B. Here we are. So the hull B went up $50 to $140 price point, and we're starting to get into ships that really, really start hurting when we're talking about more money. And then finally, the incoming king of the hull series of the working class hull series, the hull C. Now, when we get up to the hull C, we have a $350 price point, is $100 higher. And you're still talking about 4,700 or so SCU of cargo space. The new Raft that is built just to handle this. Later on in the video, you'll see a hologram of the new Hull C, and you can see crystal clear that the 32 SCU cargo containers, the 3 that the Raft can carry, are clearly attached to the Hull C now. This is an older concept photo. And there will be different containers, but the 32 is the common one that you'll see on the stations and in the Hull C. So this is a big step forward for a lot of folks. So it's a big step back if you haven't already bought one. And then you have the Hull D, which went up 100, which is 20,000 or so SCU. And then you have the Hull E, which is starting to push. This is a stock limited ship that is pushing 98,000 SCU. This is just unfathomable. This will not be in the game for a very long time. But the Hull D, on the other hand, with 20,000 SCU, is only like 5 times the size of a Kraken's internal SCU, give or take. So you're starting to get into the point of a reasonable, in some weird, convoluted way. Okay, so let's go back to the Freelancers. The Freelancer DUR is a nice buy in game if you are considering an upgrade from, say, an MPuff cargo, from a Dragonfly you may already have. That's not a bad one to CCU from, and that wouldn't be that much money. Unlike the regular Freelancer, it enjoys an additional scanning system, larger fuel tanks, and it has upgraded modules like better engines. So it's a very interesting ship. I find the Freelancer DUR an exciting ship. I will mention that the cheaper Freelancer has 4 beds, just as much as any of the other Freelancers. But it is very interesting. Now, the Hull B being jacked up in price puts an interesting position for the Freelancer Max, which in my eyes is a real winner of a ship. This ship, to me, is something I would look hard at if I was looking at things. Like, for example, the Freelancer DUR only has 36 SCU. But, I mean, it has all those other things that I was discussing, like the scanners, like the additional fuel. The Freelancer Max, on the other hand, adds a whole additional pair of engines. So it goes from 2 to 4. And when it's empty, this thing moves. And it's 2.1 million UEC in game, so the price jumps up dramatically in game, but not in the store. You only go from 135 at USD on the Freelancer DUR, which is only like 1.4 in the game or something like that, to 2.18 in game for the Max, but only $150 USD. So if I was going to pick one of the Freelancers, I would look hard at the Max. It also has a wide enough body to unofficially fit like a Cyclone, or even something maybe a little bit larger, maybe even be able to squeeze in an ROC. It's a very wide stance ship. Once again, at the end of the video, we will tour these ships and you can see for yourself if you haven't already. 4 crew, 120 SCU cargo, can fit a vehicle if you leave that area empty. It's starting to get into the crazy amounts of stowage. You got 1.5 million micro SCUs of storage space as well for your bag of holding. I really like this ship. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that this is a great ship as well because the price hasn't gone up. And if you're comparing it to the Hull B, which does have more cargo, the Hull B has 368 cargo, but the Hull B is not built to be this aerodynamic, high-speed, low-drag delivery system that we're talking about when it comes to the Max. The Max is going to get in, drop off gear, get out, and it can handle vehicles, etc. Whereas the Hull B is one that can be transformed and it can land when it's what's not transformed and everything, but it is designed to get bigger, and it only can fit that 384 SCU cargo by externalizing the cargo system. The Max is already in game. This is coming up. If you are interested in external cargo, it's not a crazy option, but it would get you ready for the larger hulls. But I would really stick out for the C if you can afford it. I hate to say it that way, especially with the price hikes, but that is something to consider. So, yeah, I'm all over the place because these are all over the place. So the Razers, I covered these a little bit in game, but the Razer series, this is the competition one. I wouldn't recommend this. It's almost like a drag racer, the way it's styled and it runs. It's very expensive. There is no racing in game that can make you money right now. There's the luxury version of the system. Looks neat. There's a combat one, interceptor one here, this one. So this little guy has a little upgraded weapons, and it can be used as an interceptor. Out of the three, I would consider this one very carefully if you're really interested. Make sure to rent this in game, fly it around, find out if it's your flight style, find out if it's too squishy for you, and if you really feel like you're getting enough performance increases over the limited weapon systems that these ships can bring and the sheer cost of this ship. For that kind of money, you can get yourself a prospector, for goodness sake, and make hand over fist of money. And the visibility is second to none in this ship. Ironically, it's the only MISC ship in the game currently that has such good visibility. You can even see the Freelancer MIS doesn't have that. And this is another one I would skip. This has rotating weapon racks in it full of missiles, and it has missiles on the wings. It has better upgraded cannons. The problem is these missiles are in a lot of ships now. A lot of ships give this ship the run for the money. I think of the Talon Shrike, for example, is a far better option than the Freelancer MIS, although this does seat 4 people. So if you need beds for 4 and food and toilets and such, this may not be a bad option. So you have the ability to kind of live out of this ship. That is a nice touch, and it handles a little bit of cargo or a flying motorcycle in the back, etc. But it's not really there. Okay, on to the Starfarers. So after this clip, you're going to see me show off a Master Endeavor I picked up in credit, and a few CCUs from Starfarer Gemini's, the sister to this vessel that's armored and a little more expensive, that handles my CCU chains because they're only $10 USD. The Starfarers to me are basically CCU chains right now, but that won't always be the case. Both of these vessels, you can see the price points are just very high, have refineries inside of them that can handle fuel and other liquids or raw ores and refine them into processed ores, minerals and such. So what's interesting about that is you need to hook up different precursors. It will be a fully hands-on job. You can't just do this solo, or unless you want to stop the whole ship and that's your whole focus is refining. But once this is in game, these ships will be worth a lot more money, even if they are still kind of like a flying FPS level, which is what CIG admitted when they first thought of these ships, when they designed them. The fuel tanks are actually set underneath, hidden behind this little winglet thing. You can kind of see them here. And there will be drogues, and some of the visions we saw were like from the sides and from the back, to be able to refuel other ships. These ships will be very critical for pyro. However, there is more and more ships, seems like every month, that are able to do refueling capacity or have some type of pad that supports vessels. The Odyssey, for example, today just happened where a ship can land. It's like Saber sized or smaller, and land and refuel. So I can't help but start noticing the Liberator is another example of a ship that can at least offer basic hand refueling and support of vessels. And more importantly, if the ship is landed on the Liberator or any other vessel and it flies it flies them through quantum and local flight and through jump gates, they won't need to use their own fuel anyway. But that topic for another day. So I do see these have a value. I hope to see their get a golden pass at some point. They desperately need it. But right now, that Starfarer Gemini is just my $10 door to the Endeavor. And on to the Endeavor. This is an extremely long-term hold. That price point is amazing. This is the new Bandu Merchantman. I keep saying that over and over again. Keep in mind, I've been saying it since last year. So if you've ever seen people that you got friends, org mates, etc., that are saying, "Oh, I picked up a Banu Merchantman for 250, 350 USD, whatever," and or more, and now you're looking at it 550 USD and gonna go up again, guaranteed. I mean, at some point, probably Alien Week, another probably 50 at the minimum. And you're looking at it and just going, "Man, why couldn't I get on that train? Why wasn't I around for that?" If you're newer backer, this is that ship for you. The Endeavor will go up at the very least. It'll at the very least nearly or double in value at the minimum. And the base unit is a capital class ship. So when you buy this, you're not buying these farm pods. You're not buying other modules. You're just buying the base ship that can attach these modules. And that's that huge ship in the middle. That's the part that's going to cost the most, and that's the part you really want to get 10-year insurance or LTI on. Don't forget you can CCU to this ship. It is not a limited ship for now. It is still in the pipeline. It's being reconcepted. We'll see. This is a very long-term hold, but in a few years, this thing will pay dividends to every owner. And stay tuned in just a little bit for me to talk about that a little bit more. So Hull C coming down the pipeline. The Raft just came in to make this ship practical. Hull D and E are much further down the pipeline. I would not hold faith on them being anytime soon. However, they're great for organizations. Communicate with your org. Make sure that you're really into hauling if you buy one, first of all. And second of all, that your org doesn't already have one or two of these sitting around, because there's only so many people that can escort them. There's only so much need for 98,000 and 20,000 SCU storage. Okay, I promised I wasn't going to do much on the Odyssey, but I want to cover it right now, at least a little bit, to avoid those folks that are, I got to buy it now. You don't. So you'll probably have at least a few days to make your decision on this ship. The fear of missing out is going to be strong on this ship. If you're concierge, I can almost guarantee that there'll be an email saying, "Hey, we thought you were going to miss it. Don't forget you have another couple days, thanks to concierge status, to buy this ship." We've seen that time and time again with ships they're trying to push. At the $700 USD price point, this ship is just shy of being able to be upgraded from a Hammerhead or some other ship like that. But at the same time, it's too high to just directly upgrade from a Carrack without spending at least something or credit. And that kind of puts a lot of people in a difficult position, because the Carrack's a very popular ship, and it's often the ship that people choose to use. So it's very hard to not directly compare this to the Carrack and then follow by the logical conclusion, if I compare it to the Carrack and I already have a Carrack, should I CCU? My advice is please do your research and wait before you apply a CCU of this ship. We will do a full in-depth dive tomorrow. There are plenty of other videos already out. There are some great Discords to chat with people with. And be sure to, if you bring up the question on Spectrum or Discord or Reddit, so r/Star Citizen, anywhere that you feel comfortable, or heck, combo me, RetJ #0001. My suggestion to you is to very, very carefully think about your play style. What are you actually doing in game? What are you and your org mates excited about? Is it mining at all? Well, then this ship has at least something to do with that. Because that's one thing I'm already going to... I'm not going to go too in-depth about this, but one of my big gripes about this ship is that its sustainability and its refinery it slaps in there, and its ability to mine fuel is only useful if you want to do that, or if you have NPCs that are willing to do that later, or another player in your group. So I just can't help, but I love seeing Jax McCleary ride off into the sunset with the Odyssey, but there's a lot of things to unpack on this ship. Please check back tomorrow when we do our full dive into the Odyssey. Okay, into my my CCU and Master Endeavor plan concepts. Let me show you where I found them, by the way, just because it occurred to me I don't see them on their package page. Oh yeah, the packages. Holy cow. So the packages I don't recommend. This one down here. The MISC Complete Pack is got a lot of fluff. And make sure you're very happy with Hull D and Hull E being in there if you're considering this. You have the Odyssey, of course, the new hotness. You have the Endeavor, which is a great hold if you really want to go that way, without the modules for it. Strangely, unless they're in the also include section. Nope, they're not. It does have LTI, but as always, as they all do. But for that kind of money, you don't even get the modules for the Endeavor, and then the Hull D and Hull E. So that's what your price is going up. So you can see the MISC gear pack, etc. But yeah, you have the credit variant that's 4,600. Same deal. And this one I'm sure will have LTI. Yeah, it has LTI. Do not buy these. Please, please, please. Use my F5 advice I used in the past video and the video before that. If you want to try for the waves to get your Hull E, if it's still available, please just buy it that way. It's not that insanely overpriced popular right now, especially with the price hike of $100. So it's not very overpopular, I should say, not overpriced. It's getting there. It's a very expensive ship, and if you are buying it, you know why you're buying a $750 ship. If you're not a hardcore hauler, if you don't know what the word freighter or jump freighter is, and you've played Eve, and you don't use them every day, do not get yourself a Hull E. And keep in mind, you're going to need an entire group to escort that thing. Okay, so onto the pledge store where this master thing is, and I will show you where the. So if you go to extras, all products, it's basically where I haunt most of the time. However, this go around, I found that there was some things that were not available unless you go through this. And for starters, look at that Odyssey Discovery Pack. IAE. There's another one. Looks like an Odyssey, a Saber, and a little car. One of the Cyclones. For $885. It's not bad. And then for Warbond, $795. That's really good if you're just getting Warbond. If you're really excited about the Odyssey. Okay, so this is the MISC Master set. It is not limited in any way. It comes with LTI, and you can see it has an incredible amount of selection. This has every single module in the game that we know of, and this is literally a floating hospital you're buying, and a super collider with research you're buying, and a telescope with research you're buying, and the ability for this thing to turn into an entire ship you're buying, because that has a special space module that allows you to do that. The Endeavor Service and Equipment Crew module that you mount to the front. This thing can take off, and then the rest of it can stay habitable and usable and make passive income while you're flying this around, literally studying stars. It's hardened for gas giant study. So, and planets and such. So very cool stuff. I think that this is a very interesting set. I think it's overkill for a single one, and here is one of the only use cases I can think of for having this set. Here we go. So I wanted to share the strategy I mentioned in, well, you didn't see it yet, but when I was walking around at the IAE MISC Day area in the hall, I mentioned that the MISC Endeavor Master Set was my game plan, 1,000 USD. I picked it up for credit, and it comes with LTI. And this is only for really suggested for people that are really extreme about the Endeavor, because it comes with an Endeavor, 2 of the domes, so that means like 2 sets of domes. That gives you 4 domes overall, and that would be like an entire Endeavor. The Super Collider, which you can then combine with other units, because it's basically there's 3 by 3 area that you can fill. So for example, if you were doing the Hope class, which is the medical one, that's the medical bay, that's the 2x2, and then you only have enough room for the 2x1 Endeavor landing pad. So these 2 things go together to make a Hope class, because this will land 2 Cutlass Reds side by side, the idea being they're the ambulances for this massive medical facility. It's multiple floors tall with proper regeneration. And as far as we understand, this will have tier 1 beds. So this will do everything to do with medical, for example. This could be used by an organization during a large combat situation. when even capital health areas are not big enough to really support. As a reminder, if somebody's laying on a bed, you cannot respawn there. So they're going to have a queue system, and then eventually the queue will be so long it's just not practical. So having an Endeavor in certain places will be very valuable. In addition, these research and general science laboratories work alongside things like the telescope and the super collider to be able to do research and be able to improve different circumstances around around this ship. Now, the biggest thing that I can see right now is that we have a lot of changes happening on the Hull series. Price increases. The Odyssey just came out. It's already pretty high. This is a ship that is not going crazy high. You got the Endeavor at the 350 USD price point. So it's sticking there. You can pick it up. It's not a limited ship because it's a very long-term ship. However, picking one of these up for credit, especially if you have the credit laying around, is not crazy if you have additional base units. So this one will be rigged up with something, let's say these two biodomes or something. And then I'll have another one with the medical bay and landing bay. Then I'll have another one with the science and general labs, maybe the telescope. So these three in a row. So this is how this kind of game is played, where all of these LTI-based modules will now suddenly be worth something once I have these realized, with this strategy of using Endeavors in a row. So last year I picked up these upgrades, and you could do this yourself. I picked up these Starfarer Gemini to Endeavor standard editions, and also a Connie Aquila, because the Aquila was something I already had at the time. And this is basically my whole fleet of my whole fleet of Endeavors sitting in a CCU format. There's not that much money tied up in these. I think it's $10. Literally, you can see it here. $10. That's it. So when you think about these ships, this is a great way to secure them, is use a CCU to a ship that's commonly available. At the very least, it's available multiple times a year. We know that the price is not going to change much on the Star G. It might go up a little bit, but these CCUs will not really be out because those Endeavors are capital class industrial ships. These will be money makers. These are ships that are going to be this. I may not end up using every CCU, but I'll probably use 2 or 3 of these CCUs. I already have one base unit, and now I have a second base sitting inside that master set. So I wanted to show you my concept for how to really maximize your Endeavors master set if you consider this a route worth taking. This is a large game, play, sit on it for a long time situation. Other than, don't forget, you will get a good amount of loaners with the MISC Endeavor, but you'll only get one set of loaners, even if you have, say, 3 of these Endeavors, even if they're CCUs applied. So only one is worth applying at any given time for that reason. One other thing to mention is that the Odyssey Windrunner paint above that's 19 USD, is not going to be available forever. This is going to be a limited edition paint. It's a pretty good paint if you ask me. So even if you don't pick up the Odyssey at this moment, it might be a buy in game, it might be a buy at a future event, but that paint will be very desirable. So you can always pick it up on its own, pick it up for credit, and then you can always exchange it and throw it into buyback if you don't want to keep that credit tied up. As a reminder, you need to wait 24 hours to put something into buyback. And as a reminder as well, if you CCU to something like those CCUs I just showed you, you cannot put it in buyback any longer unless you want to risk losing the CCU. You will get all your money back, but you won't be able to rebuy back the CCU of the original ship. You'll just be able to buy the original ship. So CCU is good. War Bond, especially CCU, is good to throw into buyback. Regular credit-based CCUs you need to sit on, so that keep that in mind, even though Endeavors are really cheap to invest into. That offers you limited options for when you actually want to do it. All right, let's get into the game. Goes for the Star G. This is a ship that badly needs a golden pass, but it is a priceless vessel. I have some of my weird armors and weapon systems that were looted off an 890 wreck last night for doing missions. As our organization Choir, we were having some fun, and basically looted an entire 890 worth of folks from the NPCs and such. Really appreciative of that because, especially with the new system, it can be pretty problematic to keep people equipped and armed up and such, and being able to get really good stuff every now and then from a nice set of a pair of 890 missions never hurts. This is the Starfarer Gemini, the armored variant of the Starfarers, and with the Star G, which is what the nickname for it is, it's a great CCU price point. A lot of my own CCUs are tied to this, including my 3 Endeavors, from Star G to Endeavor. And furthermore, I just picked up this IAE, an Endeavor Master set. So that's all the parts for those base Endeavors when they eventually become Endeavors. So this is something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on, is the price on this. And if I get wind of a golden pass, probably at Fleet Week, I'll be picking up a couple Star Gs, upgrading from other ships to Star Gs, and that would finish off my Endeavor fleet. But because the Endeavor is an extremely long-term hold, I'm going to try to wait that out as long as possible. But this is one of those ships that's just very interesting. It has refinery built in, and it is interesting because of not just the refinery, but also its ability to soon refuel other ships through these fuel tanks. And they've said in the past that they're planning to allow you to switch these out for armored, solid material tanks, basically storage units. And then you would have, so you can choose to have these liquid fuel tanks. And on the Star G, they're a bit more armored than the regular, but they have less storage space, or at least that's the way it's going to be eventually. And here's some nice big fuel accessories, and then that's the fuel control system back here. And the thought was that there should be pipes, like drogue-style pipes, behind the ship and to the sides of the ship that would allow you to refuel. And then this is the other important room on the Star G and the Starfarer. You have this nice big cargo area with a nice overlook. I am not going to wander through this ship. My gripes with this ship are vast, but I do like the jump seats here, which are a lot like a military, cargo plane or something like that. And you can see more over here. I will note that they don't have suit lockers. They don't have weapon lockers. So that's kind of, older technology. But I think with the pass system coming up, I wouldn't be surprised if this changes. I will also note, I've seen, with my own eyes, 100i slowly make its way in here and fly in. Vehicles can also go in. Your mileage may vary. However, the Starfarers and the Star G will refine fuels, will refine ore, depending on what precursors they have installed, based on the latest we've heard from the development team taking a look at reworking the Starfarers and the refining system. And also, you have that fuel refueling capacity, which will be very important for Pyro. It's just, I really don't like these ships. I think after a pass, I may fall in love with them again, like I used to before I actually could use them in game, and I'm just not a big fan. You can see that nice big turret on top, but good armor, limited weapon systems. You can see the missile rack on the front here, another weapon system, but mainly this ship is kind of a sitting duck if it doesn't have friends. You would rely on your friendly refueling, people you're refueling, to keep you safe alongside your bigger weapons, which are more designed to handle like a mid-size ship and up. Okay, so let's talk about the Prospector a little bit. This is the single mining vessel. Has shockingly, one of the best visibility cockpits in the entire game inside this tank Prospector. And it has a crew area in the back for a single person. So if you've been looking on the MISC list and you've been wondering about the Prospector, I gotta say, I'm very impressed with what this is, and I did compare it to the Vulture. The Vulture's a little smaller in some ways, and it's wider in other ways. But I mean, you have the hygiene in here. There's a toilet system. There is a bed. There is basic services in here, and all the modules are accessible. Here's your food and water and such. It's very basic, but it's here. And then there's your mining chair. And once again, this has like the best visibility, or one of the best visibilities of any cockpit in the game, full stop. You even have a window on top. I cannot stress how great this is, especially when you're in that mining interface and you have to spend a lot of time. You can't sit in third person. You have to utilize the system. You can see this is a little dated. I can't just go that way. It's got a little bit of animations going on, and this ladder used to crush people. But it doesn't now, and it's pretty cool. These Razers, I am not too fond of these. I don't believe there's much racing going on. That's a competitive one for combat. Here is the purest one, like the luxury one, and this is the competitive, like basic one. I can't recommend any of them, to be brutally honest. I know I'm gonna take some hate for that, but they're supposed to be like drag racers essentially. But there's not really anything there. Now, downstairs, we should have what I'm going for is an Endeavor. I don't see any ground vehicles or smaller vehicles snuck down here. And I would not be shocked if they have some hull series, which this is a hull series. And let's take a look. This is just the hull C. This is actually coming along pretty nicely. This is what the Raft is vision for. The Argo Raft we spoke about yesterday. Mason was featured in that video. And also, by the way, Mason's going to be coming back for another video tomorrow, an in-depth about the Odyssey, the MISC Odyssey. But this is a pretty cool design. So the Raft is designed to handle 3 of these containers. At least the 29 SCU variants. Sorry, 32 SCU variants. And I can't help but notice there's a lot of containers on even just a hull C. But the Raft will be necessary to at least allow this ship to have basic services when out in the drift, out in the deeper parts of the Stanton system and later Pyro. Yes, this ship, you will need to have some courage, but an escorted ship a ship like this being escorted will be able to make a lot of money running back and forth to Ruin Station at the very least, or getting loot from those locations on the planets, which are very barren. And this ship, when it's laden, cannot go into Atmo, cannot land. Just like the D and the E. So this is a great ship to get used to that DE lifestyle of the larger ships. I cannot ignore the fact that the price hikes happened. I'm sure you've been waiting for me to point that out. The price hikes are there. There's no way around it to talk about it. It's just, it is what it is. And I mean, we're talking about 100 USD on that hull C we just walked past. Extra. We're talking about 50 on the hull B. We're talking about 20 on the hull A. I can't speak for the hull A much, but the hull B and the C are going to be the bread and the butter for people starting out and people trying to make their mark on the hauling industry. Especially the C was, I believe, a real punch in the gut. But now looking back, hindsight being 2020, onboard refinery, mining tech, expansive. Looking back with 2020 vision, it's very hard to see them not increasing the price based on what we're seeing SCU coming out of other ships. The hull C has an insane amount of SCU for its value, and that's a problem. So they needed to make a decision about, do we nerf the hull C or do we increase the price? And usually when CIG is faced with that factor, they just increase the price. So, I mean, we're talking about on the hull C, 4,608 SCU of cargo. That's incredible. Also, there's a 100 USD price point jump on D and the E, much larger. D jumps up like 20K. The E is like 80K or something. It's just, you start getting into the sizes where, I mean, they're not even real anymore. Like in our modern gameplay, 98,000 SCU in the hull E right now. That may scale back, that may go up, but that's incredible. I mean, when you think about what you can do with that and not do with that, it's just, it kind of defies capabilities. 20,000 SCU on the hull D, 98,000 SCU ish on the hull E. That's incredible. So it puts us into a difficult position here when we talk about these hull series and where SCU is being placed. Clearly the price. That's tough, to say the least, to predict again. I don't think there's going to be a big hull price increase again. I do know that there's some limited ham wavium they could do for military week, jump week, for some of the hull series and say, oh, these are the ones the UAE uses. I suspect they would keep the same price they have now. Next year's IAE, I would suspect that the hulls are going to be about the same price. I think this price hike was across the board for a reason, to kind of set the tone for the next foreseeable future, maybe even the next 2 years at the minimum. But that's speculation. Just like it was speculation that there was going to be a price hike, and it turned out to be true. In some cases, it isn't. Still waiting for a price hike on quite a few different ships, and they never came. So here is the MISC Endeavor, and this is the Hollow at IAE, and I've got to say, I think this is a pretty cool ship. I think it's very pricey for what it is. It's significant. It's 700 USD starting, and I have a hard time thinking about what exactly this ship is. This ship has 3 massive turrets for its sake, for what it does. 3 dual size 5 turrets, which really takes the Carrack's smaller turrets, so the size 4s, but 4 of them, and it really kind of puts them in a different perspective. And I'm not going to weigh in too much on this Odyssey, because my goal is to actually take this ship, and me and Mason are going to really tear it apart piece by piece. So I'm just keeping the base levels here. Is it infinitely more powerful than the Carrack at those weapon systems? No. Is it shields impressive? Yes. Does it have a proper hangar instead of just a Pisces style hangar? Yes. So it can hold a little bit bigger ships, a lot bigger ships, like a Saber, for example. Is this ship a good fit for you? Tune in tomorrow. However, if you absolutely have to buy it now, which, by the way, this is going to be in for a while. Don't kid yourself. This isn't a 24-hour flash sale. They're going to want to push this, and they'll probably have a concierge at the end, enhanced even longer term buy. The only thing that's really limited is like the 19 USD Wave Rider skin for this, which is like a whitish blue paint, which looks good. I picked it up as like its own thing. Even though didn't pick up the ship yet, I'm still making my decision. However, tonight, if you absolutely have to look and say, look, what do I want to do with this? Should I CCU my Carrack or not? And my response to you is, hold off. Doesn't hurt to get the CCU and sit on it. Within 24 hours, you can then melt it and have it in your buyback. And then make your decision based on multiple sources. Don't just use us. Use the sources that are available right now. Use sources as you go around. Bring up the questions on Spectrum for the Q&A. Link will be in the video below, in the description below for the Q&A, which is coming up. They want the community to weigh in on this ship. You can make those questions, and you will be able to get your answers on this ship before you have to apply the CCU at the very least. Hopefully, you'll be able to buy the ship with the CCU, or war bond, or even just credit outright prior to the Q&A, after the Q&A is released. But we'll have to see timing wise. For now, this will definitely be here for at least a few days. So I believe even longer for concierge. Big coverage tomorrow from us. I covered that. Please use other channels. Please use Spectrum. Please use Reddit. The Star Citizen subreddit is fantastic for this type of work, and know every little nuance of this ship before you make that call. Do not just buy a CCU to this from your Carrack and apply it and just sit on it happily. You may luck out, or you may not. But the important part is you make the decision with all the information. That's a lot of money to be playing with. That's my limited opinion right now on the Odyssey. I know it's the exciting ship that everyone wants to hear about, but I just don't have the ability to throw together the whole video tonight. I am very pleased with this ship. I think it's a very interesting I was going to say science-minded ship. However, due to the way the turrets are situated in the larger hangar, I feel it actually has a little bit bigger combat shops, depending on how you feel about turret layout. And more on that tomorrow. So, MISC Day was a very limited day in here because the other halls upstairs are covering very specific ships. The MISC folks do not have many ships in these locations. We talked about the Starfarer, the Star G, the standbys of the MISC series. We talked about the hulls, which are all basically hollow tables at the moment. And we talked about the one, the hull, and don't forget the hull A and the hull E, the hull C, sorry, hull A and hull C are coming up very soon into game. We have the Freelancer series in their own hall. We have the Reliance in the other hall. I hate to say this, but I'm going to just go to the Freelancers because they do really warrant some coverage. The Reliance, on the other hand, I love the Mako, but in general, the Reliance are a little weak around the edges. I'm going to include in the cards a video about covering my Reliant Mako gameplay in recent testing I've done. I like the news van concept. It basically doesn't work, though. Like, a lot of the specialties of the Reliance just isn't in game yet. So it's an interesting combat ship. I've heard people have the chops of handling it. I pointed out that the wings, if they do break, though, you lose a lot of your combat capabilities. And the ship itself, like, rotates around those. But if you don't, it is pretty nasty. Okay, so the Freelancer Max. The Freelancer Max is a very interesting ship. You have a larger cargo bay. You have bigger engines. This thing can haul fast once it's non-loaded. When it is loaded, it fills this nice big bay. And you know what else can fit in this nice big bay? At least unofficially. I don't know if it can officially. Nice big vehicles. So one of the interesting things about the Max is they didn't even want to compare the Raft to the Max. They were desperate to compare it to the Freelancer standard because you have all this extra cargo. The other ones have this little mini cargo too, except for the MIS. But in here, you have this huge cargo bay. You have that secondary cargo bay. You've got a nice turret. You've got the upgraded engines. It's unlike any other of the Freelancers. If you're looking for a small hauler, honestly, I would take that over most of what's available and going to be available anytime soon. So, take a hard look at the Max. On to the MIS. Where's this the DUR? They keep changing the paint jobs. You're kidding me. You're kidding me on this. Look at this fencing. This is the DUR. Okay, so the DUR is one that has the enhanced range. It has a scanning suite that's on board. You can see how it has this scrunched in look, and this is basically the idea with these. This is what really the Freelancer design was before the Max. Was this smaller design where they have a couple different rooms and they do different things. Your crew quarters, you have 4 beds. Oh, by the way, I should go into at least one of the cockpits. You have 4 seats in the cockpit. It's a lot of crew quarters for a very small ship. You have the food, you have the shower, toilet situation, you have the first cargo bay, you have a second room here that has your modules and a disco light. And then you have your secondary cargo, your primary cargo area back here. This is one of those where you could fit a small gray cat or a dragonfly or something like that and squeeze it in. Here's the traditional Freelancer. You can see it's a little longer in here. There's not like a multi-room effect. Doesn't have enhanced scanners, doesn't have all the fun stuff for that, but it mostly looks the same as the DUR inside. Also, the DUR has enhanced range through bigger fuel tanks too. I should mention that. So the modules are a little different. The fuel tanks are a little bigger. You can work with it a little bit more. So let's go across the way here. And let's take a look at the Freelancer MIS. Now this ship is near and dear to my heart. But as Mason pointed out, there's many ships now that have about the same missile load bay as this dang MIS, even though the MIS has supposedly all these missiles on the bottoms, all these missiles on top, with a special module system in the middle that is just designed to handle missiles. And I'll show you inside how that looks. So here's your cargo bay. And then in the center here, these are all missiles inside these racks. This whole system oscillates through the ship. And these load up, and then the doors open up on top, and these missiles come flying out forward. So these are all missile racks. And somehow this ship is being outclassed in the missile category, which is just baffling. Now you have the food, like the other ones, you have the bathroom and shower. This is supposed to be like the militia ship that like helps the UAE Navy that doesn't, you know, the UAE Navy can't do it all alone. This ship comes out for like the civilian sector, and it's got these really awesome missiles. It's got an advanced targeting system, and it also has still the same cargo as the other basic freelancers that aren't the max. So I think it's a really cool ship. I do like the military style of it. You can see the nice upgraded turret on top, and the upgraded turrets on the sides that are pretty dang nice. These are pilot controlled. Now, I feel like that this ship is outclassed right now. And I feel like all the freelancers, except for the max, badly need their golden pass. And if you're gonna do the golden pass on on one of them, you might as well do all of them. So I hope to see that come together very soon. I hope to see these really have their day in the sun. They have a place. The Freelancer is one of those ships that's not quite a Connie size. It's a decent chunk below a Connie, and in cost too, by the way. These are, some of them are pretty good bang for your buck. Particularly the Freelancer Max, which is, it's very obvious that they're trying to push cargo, and with the price hike of other ships, the Freelancer Max isn't looking too bad. That's a 2.181 million UEC in-game ship right there, the Freelancer Max, and 150 standalone pledge. And that will get you a ship with 120 SCU, with a lot of engine to speak for it, with good Atmo capabilities. So that's a pretty good, awesome ship to look at. The DUR isn't too bad of a looker either. However, for obvious reasons, it has far less than the Max in storage space, and it's more meant for its scanning and long-range capabilities. Perfect for Pyro. So when you're talking about the Freelancer Max, that's another good one. I cannot, even though I love the MIS, it's one of my ships that I started with. Well, not started, but it was one of my earliest ships that was like bigger than a fighter. I can't recommend the MIS, mainly because there's so many other options. I would much rather go with, if I didn't let the Max, I'd go with the DUR that has 36 SCU. Buying game is 1.96 mil, and you also have the standalone price of 135. It's hard to fight that price, especially when you think about 4 beds in these ships. I mean, that's a lot of potential right there for not a lot of money. That'd be a nice CCU from an Argo cargo or a Dragonfly that you may have already with LTI. These aren't bad ships to take a hard look at. Those two particularly. All right, that'll do it from the showroom floor. I'll have the prices beforehand. So what I'm going to do is kind of just wish you all a good night here. And please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Long-term subscribers, thank you for sticking around. I do this. I really these events where I'm doing one of these every single day really pull at me, especially when RL tasks and needs and work come out of the woodwork. And thank you for sticking with me, and bear with my style on these, because it's got to be a certain way in order for me to complete them. It's either do it or not, do or die type situation. And I'm glad that I hope that these have enriched your IAE. I hope that you've enjoyed yourself. Please put in the feedback below in public if you'd like to chat about what you've seen, good, bad, otherwise in IAE this year, or if you'd like to chat with me in private. RedJ #0001 on Discord, as always. Available. Really, and I mean that. All right, take it easy, fly safe.